everyone. Welcome to day 3 of our safety seminar, and specifically to session 5, road safety and audit manuals and procedures. Once again, we have 4 speakers. Each speaker will have about 15 minutes to make their presentation, and then we will do the Q&A following the last speaker. Our first speaker today is John Barrell. John is an independent international road safety consultant who started his career in UK local authorities before moving into international consultancy work. He is a chartered engineer and has over 40 years of experience in leading road safety audits and providing expert input on international road safety projects. He's the immediate past chair of the UK's Chartered Institute of Highways and Transportation Society of Road Safety Auditors, which certifies auditors in the UK and overseas. He's been a member of PIARC, the Safety Technical Working Group, since 2016, and has helped prepare a selection of worldwide case studies applicable to low and middle income countries to include in the PIARC Road Safety Manual. Within SORSA, he has been particularly focused on raising the Society's profile internationally and developing further guidance to augment the current UK audit standard for application outside of the National Road Network. John's topic this morning is common misconceptions of road safety audits internationally. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff. Hopefully everybody can see the opening screen.
Yes, we can.
Welcome to this third day of what has so far been a very informative conference, and I hope it will continue. And thank you to Madame Magda and Eduardo Mazia for their 2 excellent presentations on Monday, describing the road safety work done on the Trans-Maghrebia Highway and Quito Metro, which for me illustrate perfectly the misconceptions on how road safety audit is applied in low and middle income countries. So it set the scene perfect. So let's go back to basics. What is a road safety audit? It is an independent process for checking safety on new and rehabilitated roads, carried out systematically on sound safety principle from a road user's point of view, and doesn't necessarily rely on standards. It's independent because the audit team are independent of the design, and particularly the design team. And it concentrates solely on the safety aspects of design. If there is no design, there is no audit. When it is done from the point of view of the road user and the potential dangers that they face in negotiating a new or revised layout. Road users certainly don't understand the detail and the nuances of design standards, which come into play when considering potential recommendations. So it's about how the road users interpret what they see. What it is not is an opportunity to redesign the scheme. Auditors rely on the information they are given. It's also not a technical check. It looks at technical aspects, but it is not checking their compliance, their validity, or their relevance to design standards. It is whether or not the scheme is understandable and safe for road users. And this is where the confusion with a road safety inspection or an assessment comes in. Road safety inspections and assessments look at the safety situation on an existing road. Safety audit does not deal with existing roads. It deals with how they might change, but it doesn't deal with the situation on existing roads. The EU Directive on Network Safety Management, 2008/96, defines clearly the 4 main strategies that can be applied through the life cycle of a road, from Road safety impact assessments, which are undertaken at the start of a project. Before the scheme is designed and agreed, it looks at potentially what changes will be made and what the existing usage is to determine how those potential future changes will impact on road user behaviour. To me, the examination of the area around the Quito metro stations is a perfect example of a road safety impact assessment. It's looking on what this proposal will do to the surrounding area to change road user behaviour, and particularly what safety concerns are there. Network management of cluster sites is an assessment of the road network as is to look at abnormalities or excesses in collision rates, to identify those sites and to treat them within the existing road network. Safety inspections are quite simply that. An inspection of deficiencies in existing road safety features on the road network, whether signs and lines are missing or inappropriate, whether the road surface is in poor quality, whether the safety features, barriers, guardrail, parking places have been misaligned, and whether that presents particular issues that can be addressed by replacing or improving that particular element of the infrastructure. As I've said, safety audits are fundamentally different. They do not look at the existing situation or the existing design standards. They look at how plans and guidelines for a new scheme will affect road users. Why don't we concentrate on design standards? Because design standards are not necessarily safe solutions. Many new design elements have built into them default future collision rates. They accept with that component of the design going in, there will be injury and there will be collisions. Hopefully less than at present, but they will still occur. Particularly within the urban environment, it's not possible to keep to all elements of the design standard. Compromises have to be made. Any design, any scheme is a unique combination of design elements to fulfill a particular purpose. And that combination, even of standard design features, can cause problems to road users. It's the way these features interact in a particular situation. Clearly, real crashes are not covered by the standards because people don't behave as the standards expect. Standards relate to how engineers design schemes, not how individuals use them. And again, audit concentrates on road user behaviour. It's done to ensure that highway schemes operate as safely as is practicable. It would be nice to think that through safety audit, we could eliminate all collisions and all injuries. We probably could if we had an infinite budget, but we have to put in place remedies that are proportionate to the scale of the scheme being implemented to minimize collision numbers and severity, considering the safety of all road users. And typically for new highway schemes that concentrate on improving the efficiency of vehicle movement, the majority of audit recommendations inevitably deal with non-motorized users and may be quite minor within the overall scope of the scheme. The element that's often forgotten is that it is a circular process. Auditors learn from existing collision information what are the likely circumstances to cause collisions within existing designs. They look at new designs to say, can we improve that situation by making minor changes within the design? feed that back to the designers and the construction and maintenance staff so that we improve the quality of designs. Auditors are not there to criticize schemes, they're there to improve and assist designers, construction staff and maintenance staff in providing a safer and better road network. Importantly, audit is carried out by a team. More than one individual, at least two and possibly more, who are totally independent of the design team and are competent in looking at those sorts of schemes. The competence comes from a mix of training and experience. There's a standard 10-day road safety engineering coupled with experience. And it is often that experience element that is missing, particularly in relation to the scheme that is being audited. From an international perspective, we look at schemes that are audited by international experts who may or may not be familiar with local circumstances. If you have an auditor who has dealt with European motorway projects and ask them to look at an Asian or African urban road, they don't have the relevant experience. So how do they gain that? They gain that by being part of a team, coming in either as a specialist advisor, an observer, or a team member to gain that specialist experience for the type of scheme they need to audit. So it's an ongoing and iterative process. One that we are generally familiar with, starting with the design brief and feeding through with the key parties involved at various stages. And it is communication between the audit team, the road authority and the design team that is crucial throughout this process. Auditors know their bit, they know how to carry out an audit. But understanding what the audit needs to do requires the information from the design team approved by the client or the road authority to give them the scope of work that they need to do. Two elements that are vitally important are the commencement meeting and the completion meeting, where all parties come together and should be able to get a very good understanding of what is needed and how things develop. But all that needs to be driven through the client or the road authority. They are the ones who are responsible for implementing the scheme at the end of the day and have ultimate responsibility for its safety. Auditors have the easy job. They make the recommendations. It is then up to the design team or the road authority to say whether or not that is appropriate and should go ahead. It all starts with the design brief. The better the information an auditor gets, the better scheme audit will be produced at the end of the day. And with any audit, it needs to be documented throughout the whole process and approved by the road authority. The road authority has to sign off on this at every stage through the audit. And the brief is quite detailed to give the auditor as much information as possible. Scheme drawings, any departures from standard that have been deliberately decided upon in bringing this scheme to this stage. The details of the scheme. What is it intended to achieve, whether it is benefits for motorized road users or benefits for non-motorized users. The auditor needs to know the focus and scope of the scheme he or she is intended to audit. Any relevant factors affecting safety, particularly vehicle and non-motorized usage, where their movement patterns are. What are the existing problems? 36 months of collision data. Any previous audits that have been done and any thought processes that have gone through and been documented. Plans to mark up during the audit to put salient points in place, and to provide contact details for the police. Local knowledge is vital in producing a robust and valid audit. Here's a typical road safety audit request included in a internationally funded major road scheme that looks at reconnaissance inventories, inventories of existing road signs, and various other elements to do with traffic movement. The only part of that that relates to undertaking an audit are those last two lines. The rest of this is information that the auditor needs supplied, not that the auditor goes and finds. And additional information on refers to accident statistics, but these days they're crash and casualty statistics, so that they know the pattern of collisions that are happening on the existing network that the scheme will potentially address. Key element for auditors are the drawings, and inevitably the drawings are not sufficient. They give the core detail of what the scheme is going to improve, not necessarily the context of where the scheme is and what it needs to deliver. How this road interacts with the surrounding area, where the local settlements are, where bus stops, pedestrian movements are, where schools, that will have a major impact on road safety of all users in this area. That information needs to be provided to the auditor so that they can produce a comprehensive and detailed report that gives a brief description of the proposed scheme and the information. Importantly, identifies the stage of audit and the team membership. Was it detailed design? Was it preliminary design? Was it post-opening? The team members looked comprehensively at all the elements that were required, together with others who may have been present. Members of the design team can potentially make a contribution, together with the police. Details of who was present on the site visit, when it was undertaken, and the conditions that were observed. The site visit is only a snapshot. It doesn't cover the whole of the situation. And importantly, it identifies the road safety problems supported by background reasoning, identifying who is likely to be injured and how. Each problem recorded separately, and only road safety issues recorded. The audit report is an exception report. It covers all the relevant aspects that might be included in a checklist. But if they're not mentioned, it doesn't mean they haven't been covered. It just means it's not a problem. And crucially, it's signed by the audit team as a true and correct record of what has been identified and delivered. A good audit report focuses only on road safety issues and has well-described problems. It has practical recommendations, not design solutions. It is for the designer to come up with the design solutions. Two aspects that increasingly occur in low middle income road safety audits assessments are risk rating and design solutions and costing. To me, they are not the auditor's responsibility. Risk rating is something that is considered in the round as part of the whole scheme. It is not subjective, it is something that needs to be quantified and costed. Because auditors do not necessarily build schemes in the local circumstances, they do not have a valid idea of what a recommendation or a change in design may cost. They will make a recommendation to change something. The decision on the design solution and its cost is done by the design team for approval by the road authority. The auditor merely the things that need to be addressed. Here's a typical example that upsets me. First of all, it identifies a high problem severity in terms of collision. Goes on to say that it concerns pedestrian crossings on a right turn slip lane, with a risk of collision between vehicles and non-motorized users due to an inadequate pedestrian crossing. These crossings are throughout the scheme being considered, so depending on the pedestrian flow, the collision risk may in fact be quite low. Severity might be high, incidence may be low. Those two elements combine to give the overall risk. Having described the problem and who may get injured, the recommendation is the pedestrian crossing should be raised or signalized. Two issues with that. It's not one solution, it's two. And both solutions are design solutions. The key aspect here is in terms of the speed of approach and the likely conflict with pedestrians. The audit recommendation should be that the uncontrolled crossings should be amended to provide safe crossing opportunity for pedestrians, taking into account the speed of vehicles and the difficulty in assessing the gaps in free-flowing traffic. How that is achieved is the designer's responsibility. The auditor merely points out this is an area of concern that needs to be looked at in detail in the design. Once the recommendations have been produced, the design team and the client do not have to accept them. I'm quite happy for a designer or a client to say, no, we're not going to do that because of whatever reason. Auditors only look at safety. They don't look at environmental considerations, scheme cost, land take, all the other things that the designer has to look at. If the ultimate decision is we can't do it because it will cost too much, that's fine. But bear in mind that decision is signed off by the design team and by the road authority. The chairman or the director of the road authority puts his signature on it and says, it costs too much to save a life here. Now, I fully understand why they don't want to do that, but that's absolutely fine. All the audit process is doing is identifying these situations and saying, it is up to you to deal with it. How you deal with it is your decision, but it needs to be recorded and it needs to be made public because it's your responsibility. Auditors have the easy job. They have no responsibility ultimately. And the copy of the final decision is given to the audit team for information. It is not for them to make further comments necessarily. That is now out of the process and it is firmly in the road authority's hands to complete. The auditor comes in independently, does a review, say, these are what I think are the problems, go away and solve them. How you solve them is up to you. I'll go off and do my next audit. Thank you very much.
John, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation and very happy that you're able to share the wisdom that you have gained over your many years of working in the road safety audit sector. And I heard a lot of great pieces of advice there. So thank you very much. For anyone that has any questions for John about his presentation, please go ahead and type those into the chat pod and we'll come back around to those after the last presenter. Our next speaker is Mr. Francisco Reina. Francisco is the Business Development Director of Fred Engineering in Italy. He is a senior civil engineer with solid experience in road safety engineering and road design, especially in low and middle income countries. He has been involved in multiple road safety assignments all over the world. He's a certified road safety auditor and an accredited IRAP practitioner. And Francisco's presentation today is a new approach for a comprehensive road safety assessment throughout the entire design process. Francisco, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this interesting seminar. As Jeffrey has said, well, today I'm going to present to introduce a new approach for how to carry out road safety assessment through the entire design process of a road. So next slide, please. So as you know, research studies have shown that the way that roads are laid out and designed can reduce vulnerable road users' exposure to traffic, can also reduce the probability that crashes occur when these users are exposed, and reduce the severity of injury when a collision occurs. Besides, substantial and sustainable casualty reduction can be also achieved in a relatively short time and at a relatively low cost if we identify and we treat high-risk infrastructure sites, creating safer and forgiving roads. And for doing this, we have a branch of tools that we can use to do. We can use it for applying them all along the design process of a road. Here you can see that this is the complete process for a road design, from the planning to the operation. And for the different stages, we can use different elements or different procedures, different tools in order to assess which is the safety of the road along the whole procedure. So for example, during the planning stage, where we provide the feasibility studies, we design feasibility studies, we can use a road safety impact assessment in order to understand and in order to make comparisons between the different solutions that we can provide in this feasibility study in terms of safety. Then when we jump to the design, to the preliminary design, to the detailed design, and also before the opening of the road and after the opening of the road to the traffic, we can use road safety audits. And then when the road is in operation and different activities are implemented, for example, in terms of maintenance, in terms of traffic, etc., we can also use road safety inspections. So as you can see, we have all along the procedure of the design of a road, we have different tools, different procedures that we can use in order to assess which is the safety of a road section. Next slide, please. Besides, we have also other useful tool or procedure that it is provided by IRAP. And this procedure allows us to implement road safety assessments of a road infrastructure, analyzing an important number of road attributes that are directly linked to the safety of main road users. So, for example, vehicle passengers, motorcycles, bicycles, and pedestrians. As you know, also, IRAP procedure allows us to classify the safety of the road every 100 meters using a system of stars from 1 to 5 stars. And this is really good. This is really good because IRAP is providing, or IRAP procedure, sorry, is providing a tool to quantify the level of safety of the different road sections for different road users. And this is something that we don't have, for example, when we implement a road safety assessment or road safety audit or road safety inspection. But with this procedure, we can define which could be, or which is the present level of safety of a road and which could be the future level of safety of a road if we implement specific countermeasures. Next slide, please. But we don't have only these procedures. We have some other elements or some other tools that we can use to improve the safety of a road. For example, we have also an important source of information from the road user's perception. It is really, really interesting to understand how road users how road users interpret and understand the safety level of a road. And for doing this, we can try to collect this information, because it could be really useful in order to, for example, measure the level of the road safety knowledge that they have, also to understand which is the attitude and behavior of the main road users, even if we can make surveys or we can make observations, field observations. But asking them is also a really good way in order to have an important base of information that we can also use later on in order to define which could be the best countermeasures that we can suggest, or before that, in order to understand which are the high risk sections and which are the main risks that they are facing. So according to this, it is really important if we can use this extra procedure in order to take into consideration these elements in our usual procedures and tools that we are usually using, like a road safety audit or road safety inspection, etc. And these opinions for the road users will be really, really interesting and will be really useful in order to translate them into engineering safety measures and into the design that we are preparing. Next slide, please. But apart from that, we have also other aspects where we can try to influence in order to improve safety from the very beginning. From the very beginning, and also in the last part of the before construction of a road. So, for example, if we can make revisions of road design manuals, of road design guidelines, in order to upgrade them, in order to take into consideration different elements and different aspects that has to be considered according to the new road safety approach that now is moving along the safe system, considering how to manage speeds, how to manage, how to use traffic calming measures. With all these elements, we can improve and upgrade road design manuals, and then we can have we can design roads with a better safety approach. Apart from that, we can also make a revision of the technical standards. I know that this is something that it is not exactly in the road design procedure, but it could be a kind of base that if we have these upgraded manuals considering the safety approach, the safety point of view, it could be easier in order to get better road designed. Apart from that, we can, during the whole process, we will achieve also the construction. Before the construction, you know that there is also the bidding documents. For the bidding documents, I can tell you that it is really important to review them also from a safety point of view. There is a lot of elements that can be improved and that can be requested to the contractor in order to improve safety also during the construction works. So you can see that we have different elements and different aspects that we can take into consideration in order to improve the safety of roads all along the design process. Next slide, please. Now I would like to introduce you a case study that we are in the threat engineering. We are working presently. This is a case study in Vietnam where the main objective was to make, we can say, a wide safety assessment of some road sections. The main objective of this road safety assessment was the National Highway 19. This is a highway that runs from the east to the west of the Central Highlands coastal regions in Vietnam. This is part of the Trans-Asia Highway, that it is one of the key corridors in the country. It is also a key transport route that connect the eastern Cambodia with the southern Republic of Laos. And the total length is around 250 kilometers, for which around 150 will be upgraded recently with a World Bank financing. And the rest of the road sections are already upgraded or will be planned for upgrading. Next slide, please. So what we have done for this wide road safety assessment. Here you have all the stages that we have followed for this assessment. We have started with a gap analysis. Gap analysis in terms that when we have arrived to this project, the client was, the government was preparing the detailed design of the road of the different road sections in this National Highway 19. So, but previously of the detailed design, there were different road safety assessment. There were, for example, an IRAP baseline, that it is an assessment that shows the results of a baseline survey and provides some information on the location of the high-risk sites, and some cost-effective countermeasures that can be considered later on. There was also some star rating reports that show the assessment of results based on the preliminary design, and provided also some advice on further treatments that could be considered to achieve a better level of safety. And there was also road safety audit reports on the preliminary design. So what we have done is to take all this information, we have analyzed this information, and we have made a comparison of what they say there, I mean, what they are suggesting for improving road safety, and we have compared this with the detailed design. And according to this, we have assessed it a little bit. We have assessed it if the elements that have been suggested has been considered in the detailed design. Apart from that, this was our base. We have started from there. Apart from that, we have implemented a road safety assessment. Road safety assessment using two main procedures, two main tools. The first one is we have used star rating for design tool from IRAP in order to evaluate the level of safety of the detailed design. So with this, we have quantified which is the level of safety for the different road users, for the different road sections that we have to analyze. And then we have also implemented a road safety audit on the detailed design. So with this road safety audit, what we have done is we identify possible issues that we have identify in the design, in the detailed design, and we have suggested feasible countermeasures to eliminate or reduce the impact of the safety problems that we have considered or identified. So after this, we have also carried out different iterations with this tool, star rating for design, in order to understand what we can do if we implement different countermeasures in the detailed design. You will see later how we have done this. And finally, with this, we have achieved a specific safety level. We have improved the safety level of the road considering this suggestion, these countermeasures. And then we have carried out and we have prepared a safer road investment plan in order to understand which is the potential social cost that we can save with all these countermeasures that can be considered in the detailed design. Next slide, please. So, as I told you, all the problems that were identified in previous road safety assessment and the related recommendations that they have suggested in the previous IRAP baseline analysis and start rating analysis and also road safety audit were revised by yourself. And then for each of them, we have checked if the proposed recommendations were implemented in the detailed design or not. So you can see here in the upper side of the slide, the comparison between the previous estimation, the previous level of safety. As you can see, we have red, an important percentage of red and black star, and then which could be the improvement of the safety of the road if we consider all the recommendations that we had in this previous report. So you can see that we jump from an important percentage of the length of the road sections, right, in color red and black, that it is 1 and 2 stars. And then after that, if we consider the recommendations, we jump to 3 stars or more. So you can see here that we have this for the different road users. Next slide, please. So we have done more or less the same with the detailed design. So although if the countermeasures that we are foreseeing before in the detailed design have increased the star rating for all road users, there are still some road sections that are critical. And these critical aspects has to be solved, and we are solved giving some recommendations related to this. And according to these recommendations, you can see that again, we can improve the level of safety for the different road users. So you have in the left side and the existing road safety level, where again, we have an important percentage, more than 50–60% of 1 star and 2 stars, according to IRAP. And then according to the recommendations that we will do, we will improve them for the detailed design. So you can see that the existing road in 2009 has a lot of length of road with 1 and 2 stars. And then for the detailed design, it has been improved. But in the right side, you can see that the detailed design has also some important length of road sections with 1 and 2 stars, even though there is an increase. So next slide, please. So according to this, as I mentioned before, we have made different iterations considering this tool, Star Rating for Design, in order to understand how to improve the safety of the road. So we have started with the baseline survey. Then we have carried out a first iteration considering what we have in the preliminary design. According to this, we have achieved a specific level of safety. After that, we have run another iteration, second iteration, considering the suggestions and the countermeasures that we have suggested in the road safety audit. And then according to this, the detailed design has to be improved and upgraded in order to take into consideration these recommendations. And then with this, we will carry out a third iteration in order to achieve a specific or potential safety level that, as you know, according to the UN, we have to achieve at least 3 or more 3-star or more stars. Next slide, please. So the star rating results after the implementation of the countermeasures suggested in the road safety audit show that the target of 3 stars or better has been achieved for road all user categories. In the left side, you have the detailed design as it is, and in the right side, you have the detailed design with considering the road safety audit countermeasures. This is really important. You can see that it is an important improvement of safety after the implementation of these road safety audit countermeasures. This is something theoretical. At the end, these countermeasures, these recommendations that we give in the road safety audit has to be considered and implemented in the detailed design and then in the reality. So this is something that we have to consider all along the design process. That and this is also really important, that a road safety specialist, a road safety auditor, is present in the different stages for the road design. Next slide, please. So here you have the different percentage in terms of length of 3-star or better for this road section. As you can see, for the different road users, we start with the existing road. So for 3 stars, we have around 20–30%. When we carry out and we consider the recommendation for the road safety audit, we jump, as you can see, we jump up to 70–90%, 80% for the different road users, but for the motorcycles. And then for the detailed design, after the road safety audit recommendations, we get to the 100%. The application of the Arab methodology in this case, and along the various project phase has made possible to quantify the possible improvements in terms of star rating. So in terms of improving the road safety for all types of road users. Next slide, please. You can see here, for example, the procedure, how we have improved the road safety for the different, for example, for vehicle occupants or for motorcycles. In the upper side, we have the existing condition. Then we have in the middle, the detailed design. And then after the detailed design and after the road safety audit, we have the final safety level that we can get after the consideration of the suggestion for the road design, for the road safety audit recommendations. Next slide, please. No, this is the one that we have already talked about. We jump now to the cyclists and the pedestrians. So again, for cyclists and pedestrians, we have the different procedure. So for road sections in operations, we can proceed in the same way. And we have done this exactly the same. So we have started, with the information that we have for the Arab baseline. We have also some road safety inspection previous. After that, we have implemented the road safety inspection. No, before. Yes, right there. So we have carried out the road safety assessment with a road safety inspection. Then with the IRA, we have followed the IRA methodology in order to, based on the recommendation from the road safety inspections, we can improve the level of safety, and we can use it through the using IRA tools. And then again, finally, we can establish which is the potential social cost saving through the A Safer Road Investment Plan, where we can recommend the different countermeasures that can be implemented. Next slide, please. Apart from that, we will also carry out a citizen engagement study. This citizen engagement study has been implemented, or it will be implemented in order to understand the perception of the road users. And this is the different key elements that we have considered. The approach is a cross-sectional approach where we have mixed quantitative and qualitative methodology. So we have implemented questionnaire surveys. We have also carried out in-depth interviews, and we have also organized focus group discussions. The locations, we have selected locations of road sections with 1-2 stars for the 4 road users, crowded areas with high risk cross sections in different type of environments. The main participants were, of course, road users and other community members, but also local police, local transportation staff, and also we have added here school principals, and school staff. This is really important because at the end, defining which are the main key stakeholders to which we have to be focused is the key for this. And then, as I told you before, the tools that we have considered: questionnaires, interviews, and a focus group. Next slide, please. Apart from that, we have carried out a revision of the bidding documents. We have reviewed the bill of quantities. We have considered which are the items, for example, for traffic management and maintenance for the diversion roads and temporary access during the construction works. We have also analyzed the technical specifications, everything related to signaling, marking, road equipment, the type of materials, the performance of the materials, etc. We have also made an assessment of the bidding documents, mainly the requirements related to the contractors in terms of safety. So, for example, the requirements in terms of traffic management plans, the personal requirements, if there is a road safety expert in the team in the personnel of the contractor. This is really important. And next slide, please. And also we have carried out a revision of design manuals. In this case, it was a design manual for the two-wheelers. We have analyzed the areas of relevance in terms of safety. And for each of these areas, we have make a revision and considering international best practices, as well as proposition for better ensuring road safety conditions. So, for example, policy, speed, traffic, road design, road users, all these aspects were assessed. Next slide, please. You have here an example of after the revision of this of the manual, we have analyzed some specific solutions according theoretical solutions that we can implement, and we have analyzed this using the Arab star rating methodology. And according to this, we have got which is the star rating for the different road users. In this case, it's a two-wheeler, so we have analyzed this for motorcycle from the point of view of the motorcycles and bikes. And you can see that, well, for the different solutions that we can find, we can assess in the manual, we have different level of different star rate. Next slide, please. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisco. That was a fabulous presentation and very encouraging to see how safety can be considered throughout all of the stages of a project's development. So if you have questions for Francisco, please enter them in the chat pod, and we'll move ahead to the next speaker, which is our own technical committee chair, Mr. John Milton. John was introduced earlier in the seminar, so I won't read his entire bio again, but let's just say that John is a very accomplished safety practitioner here in the United States and has a global reputation as well. And John will be speaking about our own PIARC road safety manual. John, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak again. It's been a great conference. Let's just say that. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the committee, Technical Committee 3.1 on road safety, and then I'm going to get into the road safety manual as well. Next slide. So I just brought up these points, so I'll go ahead and skip to the next slide. The Technical Committee 3.1 on road safety, we are focused on fatal and serious crashes worldwide, and particularly as it relates to vulnerable road users in low and middle income countries. So as we go through our discussions, we seek out those issues and we try to address them to the extent that we can. TC3.1 essentially came from TC1.1, which was national policy and programs, as well as TC1.2, which was design and operations of safer road infrastructure. Next slide. Now, we produce a number of different works. If you haven't been able to go out and look at the PIARC library, I strongly suggest you do so. We have produced a number of different documents in the last cycle, a report on implementation of national system policies, road safety catalog of case studies. There's a lot of information in there that would be valuable to you to take a look at. The safety audit guidelines, and this is a document that we're also working on right now to update, a report on road safety evaluations based on the human factors. Human factors is a very critical and important part of safety that is often overlooked in terms of what we do from an engineering standpoint. The road safety manual, of which I'll get into more detail as we move forward. Next slide. Now, our working groups right now are specific issues related to low and middle income countries. We're trying to identify and understand what are those issues that are specific to these countries, and how can we bring knowledge and expertise forward to best address those issues. The implementation of proven countermeasures. Time and time again in this discussions we've had over the last few days, the issue of countermeasures, how do you select them? What are the proven countermeasures that if I implement them on the road surface, I'm going to do something to reduce fatal and serious crashes? The road safety audit guidelines, which we spent much time today, are critically important to how we design, how we operate a facility, how and what is going to become of that road. How do we check? How do we make sure that when we make an investment, it's going to be a good investment? Now, the implications of connected and automated vehicles is going to differ from each country. The deployment of these type of technologies will differ. They're not going to be the same in one country as they are in another. And so we're going to be doing a workshop in the very near future. The final issue is the update on the road safety manual. The manual we produced and we updated in 2019. We're updating it again to make sure that we're relevant, that the information contained is the most up-to-date and most useful information that we can put in that document. Next slide. So why a road safety manual? I think it's been said well that the global crisis on death and serious injury continue. For many of the countries, we're seeing increases in crashes, not decreases. What is it we need to do to implement this largely preventable problem? Are the things that we can do, things that we can bring forward. The road safety manual is premised on the safe system approach. We believe at all levels, whether it is early adoption of safe system principles to a much more global, higher level adoption of the safe system principles, we want to see those applied at some level throughout the differing countries. We bring leadership and institutional capacity, and by using the road safety manual, we think that that can be brought up. And safety is an urgent developmental priority. The impacts are quite significant. Next slide. So as I suggested, the road safety manual is based on the safe system approach. It shifts from crash prevention, it shifts from crash reduction to crash prevention. What is it we can do proactively to address road safety? It directly addresses the needs of vulnerable road users. In many countries, we see that road users are treated differently. The vehicle may be predominant, and therefore the systems are built for the vehicle. But there are other road users, bicyclists, motorcyclists, and pedestrians out on the system. We need to address and adjust for those road users as we see them out on the road system. It encourages safety to be designed into developing networks rather than as an afterthought. It is best to do things right from the beginning rather than to wait to see how a road operates and then adjust for those issues. That's not going to work. That's the value of road safety audits. That's the value of being proactive in road safety. Next slide. The PIARC online manual is free of charge, and that's very important, I think, to many of us. There's 3 main parts. There's 12 chapters in total. The case studies and links are detailed technical information and other references. So there's a lot of information. We've identified information that we think is relevant, and we provide links to those. Each one of the chapters and each one of the parts can be downloaded and printed. And it's aligned with the pillars for road safety decade of action. Pillar 1, road safety management. Pillar 2, road safety and mobility. And Pillar 3, safer road users. Next slide. The chapter organization is there for the reader. There's key messages for managers. To understand road safety, the practitioner often understands what they're doing, but management may not. We have messages for management to assist. Key principles for each of the topic. What are the things that I specifically need to know about each topic area? Discussion to explain key principles. There are case studies. We really worked hard last time, and we're continuing to work hard to provide case studies that will show you how and why and where to apply road safety principles. Links to technical material and other references. There's a lot of information in the document, and we try to make it accessible to you wherever it exists. Getting started, making progress, and consolidating activity into each section. So it's a stepwise process. We want you to be able to, this is what you need to know at the early stages, and this is what you need to know as you progress along the safe system approach, and as well as you progress with the road safety manual. Next slide. Here's the website. Like I said, it's an online manual, and this is just a slide to show you how it's organized. Next slide. So I'm going to go a little bit more into the detail of the specific sections. Part 1 is on the global road safety perspective. Scope of the road safety problem is Chapter 1, and key developments in road safety is Chapter 2. Next slide. The scope of the road safety problem is enormous, obviously, particularly for low and middle income countries. In some cases, it's between 1 and 7 of the gross domestic, 1 and 7% of the gross domestic product. That's an enormous societal impact. And that deaths and injuries are preventable overall. You can see that road safety in different countries and different parts of the world differ. And you need to take that into account as you go into your own road safety discussions. Next slide. The scope of the road safety problem, obviously we understand from the UN Decade of Action, the global goal is to stabilize deaths by 2020. That hasn't occurred, and we're moving into a second decade of action. We're going to look at new steps, what is necessary. It's a shift to the safe systems approach. You know, to be able to do safety, there has to be political interest in a need to set long-term goals, as well as targets, and to provide the resources. Safety can't change without the resources to change it. High-end countries need to continue to pursue evidence-based approaches. We need to continue to improve the processes specific to the country, and we also need to improve what we're doing to make our predictions of road safety, our assessments of road safety, and our designs of road safety much more reliable. Next slide. Part 2 is on road safety management. The chapters are road safety management, the safe system approach, effective management and use of safety data, and road safety targets and investment strategies, plans, and projects. Next slide. As I suggested, the road safety manual is modeled off after the safe system principles, that people make mistakes that can lead to crashes. Now, that means that we need to be able to share that responsibility. We know that people are going to make mistakes. We need to design a forgiving roadside. We need to have a self-explaining road to reduce fatal and serious crashes. Because the human has limited tolerance to crash forces, we need to understand that in how we design and operate the facilities to provide crash cushions, road safety barriers, whatever is necessary to reduce the potential for injury. There's a shared responsibility, particularly for those who design, build, and manage the road. We cannot say that because somebody did something wrong on the facility, we have no obligation. What we must say is that we can do something from an infrastructure standpoint to reduce fatal and serious crashes should they occur. All parts of the system must be strengthened together to multiply the effects. If one part fails, the other parts of the system are protected. Next slide. Part 3 is on planning, design, and operation. Chapter 7, roles, responsibilities, development, and programs. Chapter 8, design for road user characteristics and compliance. Chapter 9, infrastructure management, policy, standards, and guidelines. Chapter 10, assessing potential risk and identifying issues. Chapter 11, intervention selection, monitoring, and evaluation of road safety interventions is chapter 12. Next slide. One area that I tried to emphasize is human factors. Human factors and understanding the limitations of the road users, the drivers, the people who operate on the facility is critically important. Failing to do so means that we're going to have a system that humans are unable to or not able to at the highest levels operate within those environments. Speed management is critical. How are we going to go about enforcing and providing a system where speeds are kept down? What is necessary to achieve that from a human factors perspective? How do we manage the field of view so that the driver can maintain their focus on the task at hand, and that is driving, rather than the distractions amongst what is going on the roadside? To provide self-explaining roads is a critical step in the road safety principles. Next slide. As I suggested, infrastructure is a critical part of the road safety question. What are the improvements that we can do that can contribute substantially? So we've talked about countermeasures. What are those infrastructure countermeasures that we can put into place that are going to reduce fatal and serious crashes? Here we see barriers can save lives. It's a wise application of safety. Roads infrastructure is the single most effective means to do road safety. When we're thinking about road safety, it is about understanding the contributing factors to the crashes and addressing those contributing factors. Once again, I suggest to you that infrastructure is a mechanism to reduce fatal and serious crashes. It's not the only. Enforcement and education are principal and possible countermeasures in selection as well. Standards, guidelines, and tools. How we go about understanding the system is very important as well. To be able to network screen, to select safety projects, to select the best safety projects to go out in priority order to determine what needs to be done on the road facility. And we can do this in terms of demonstration projects. We're not always going to be able to do everything all at once. We can go out, make changes, see how those changes work, and then if they work well, implement them in a larger scale. Next slide. Intervention, selection, and prioritization. I put this slide in there because it's critically important. If you're going to be most effective in road safety, you have to select the right projects. You have to be able to understand and address the risk. That's why we use the tools like IRAP and other tools, for instance, in the Highway Safety Manual in the US, and many other tools in different countries where they're looking at road safety, trying to address that from proactive tools and going out there and making modifications. Interventions are there to address contributing factors. I can't overemphasize contributing factors. Go out, understand what is happening, and address those contributing factors to be most effective. Detailed information is available on the intervention and use, including those for low and middle income countries. And that is one effort that today the TC3.1 is undertaking, proven countermeasures. We want to get that information out to you to help you understand what we're seeing as effective. Economic assessment is also very important. Being able, again, to prioritize products in priority order to get the best return on investment for the funds that we are spending. Next slide. Once we've chosen to do a project, we need to monitor and analyze and evaluate those projects. Again, the idea is that what we're trying to achieve is a continued improvement overall. Monitoring, seeing what's happening, analyzing to understand the individual parts, and evaluating and comparing what you're doing from location to location, again, so that you can improve those systems. Next slide. Now, I've shown here is that we have 70+ case studies in the road safety manual and many other case studies available to you in the library that is maintained by PIARC. Here's just an example of a case study from Denmark that shows Denmark's Road Safety Commission National Action Plan and points out the importance of having a national strategy, a national action plan, so that people can understand what we're doing, how we're going about road safety, so that the elected officials, those officials in place who make the decisions, understand what we're doing and why we are intending to improve and where we're intending to improve road safety. Next slide. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions on the road safety manual, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you for your leadership of our technical committee and just for your leadership within the road safety community as well. I think the the road safety manual and being able to contribute to it is one of the things that gets me personally very excited about being a member of PIARC and being able to share expertise and learn from each other. Really has been fantastic so far in my short time with the committee to date. So thank you for that overview of the RSM. Our final speaker in this session will be our own Ahmed Ksontini. Everyone knows Ahmed as the chair of this seminar, and I'd like to recognize him and thank him for all of his very hard work in organizing this seminar. So thank you, Ahmed. And he'll be speaking about the experience in Tunisia over the last 15 years with road safety design audits. Ahmed?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much for your presentation. And actually, yes, my presentation today, I'll be speaking about, let's say, more technical aspects in road safety. It's about the road design quality control, considering road safety issues. Next slide. So in Tunisia, we have already defined the road groups and types. So for rural roads, we have several hundreds of kilometers of motorways and thousands of national, regional, and local roads, also called principal roads. On the map here, you see that the network is well developed over the whole country and is still growing through many new motorways, corridors, some ring roads in major cities, while other important roads are reinforced or upgraded into 2x2 lanes. And we have also many rural and agricultural tracks, which are a network by itself, but not represented here in the map. As for the urban areas, the classification is more or less classic. We have principal, distribution, and service minor roads. But also in some megacities, we have some rapid urban ways that are used when the traffic is higher. On the next slide. So I've already shown on the next slide the distribution of the crashes, over the Tunisian national roads. And as part of the Tunisia RAP we were discussing yesterday, the Tunisia Arab project, we were able to map two key elements from these crash maps. So on the next slide, you have two maps. Next slide, Miguel. So on the left, there is the crash risk per kilometer traveled in Tunisia, and it is presented with the IRAP classification based on the colors defined for the stars. Actually, this is not an IRAP assessment of the roads. It's based on the database of crashes by the observatory. You see here that many roads shows a high crash risk, and this map actually shows how and where behavior needs to be modified in order to minimize risk in doing so. Users will recognize the sources of risk on different types of roads. But on the right map, which is more interesting for the road authority, the crash density is calculated and shown for national roads. This can help them to assess priorities for improvements and to define clear targets for their fund expenditure. By the way, these maps are based on the traffic census of the Ministry of Equipment and the crash database of the observatory that our partner from the observatory, Mohammed Amin, showed in the first day. Next slide. So in Tunisia and also for Northern Africa and Western Africa and many countries, for these roads, the design is based on a very rich archive of guidelines. They are mainly French guides, and for almost countries in this part of the continent, I choose here the most important ones for road design and also for intersection, roundabout and interchanges and bypasses. But behind these documents, there are hundreds of other guides about road safety, urban area roads, roadsides, safety barriers, and so on and so forth. When reading these technical guides for design, you'll see that there is a huge amount of recommendations. Such a way, any designer, even with a long and strong experience, wouldn't answer all the questions and wouldn't be able to account for all the safety aspects, especially when he has to deal with many projects in the same time. And in fact, as per the next slide, we definitely need checklists. Next slide. We use actually in Tunisia and in most of our projects, the checklist of the French Service of Technical Studies for Road and Motorways. And also we start using the PIARC checklists, which are quite rich and contain many recommendations in order to check the design and in order to be sure that we are counting all the safety issues, starting from the preliminary design, the detailed design, and also the construction design. There, you will find more than 200 questions to account for road safety in your project, which is quite impossible to have in head, and which are not counted systematically in the commercial design softwares. So there is actually no other way to check the design apart these tools and these checklists. They contain questions about road design, the profile and the cross-section, but also the intersection and bypasses. Question about how we chosen these safety barriers and how they are implemented. Question about the signage, the legibility, the visibility. Question about the roundabouts and T-junctions and so on and so forth. Actually, this is a rush of source information. Next slide. And when we use this source of information, the designers, I've seen that they started to make them ask the right questions. They started sharing ideas between colleagues, and experience to deal with the flexibility that must be accounted for in the design while accounting for these guides and checklists. We've also started to share some tools to control our design, and this is a good step for our country. And at this step, I see that we have reached a good level of quality control of the design. Actually, this was applied in many projects, for example, the Trans-Maghrebian motorway in Tunisia, the National Road 11 showed by Naida, and also urban safety on some municipalities, like shown by my colleague Selwa. Next slide. So the designer correctly checked now the visibility, which was not accounted for all the projects. It was systematic only for some major roads or motorways, for example. This allowed also to account for good visibility for overtaking, good visibility on curve entries, on intersections, and they ensure that they are greater than stopping distance when necessary. Our colleagues and designers started also to check the curve sequences, which was not systematically counted for, the distance between curves depending on their sign, the code coordination between the horizontal and vertical alignment. All these come to the design in a correct manner after using those checklists. And this is based on the experience that we have had in Tunisia over the last, let's say, 10 years. They also check route-bound deflection, which was not accounted for systematically. They check also the vehicle movements and paths on the drafts to avoid unsafe measures. They also account for vulnerable users in rapid urban ways. As for the clear zone treatment also, roadside hazards and equipment, are moving for a better side, and new projects make use, for example, of the European Standard 1317 to define barriers and their ends. But I think that this should be adopted in all projects, not only for pilot ones. This is a challenge in the coming projects, especially the corridors that are in design process. Next slide. In the meanwhile, when we look into the crash database, we unfortunately see that over the period 2015 to 2019, fatal and serious injuries are around 11,000 in rural roads, while more than 22,000, the double, are in the urban roads. So it is 2/3 on the urban roads. So we have here a big challenge. Next slide. We need to focus on urban areas more and more, where there are lack of funds and sustainable resources to account for road safety. The municipalities who are in charge of designing, constructing, and maintaining the streets, they suffer from lack of experience and global leadership at the national scale. So we need to revise our development plans and to adopt safety engineering facilities and try to convince them about their effectiveness and about their importance in their respective regions. And we will need to convince them that streets must be shared with vulnerable road users and to avoid constructing rural streets only for vehicles. Actually, we are investigating these challenges, and we are sometimes shocked by some design in urban areas. As you may see here, very large streets in front of universities. With that, if you check the observatory database, so you'll see many accidents that are reported as due to pedestrian crossing the pavement with no attention. Okay, but is the street offering a safe crossing journey with more than 20 meters? I don't think so, and absolutely no. Sometimes there are no sidewalks, despite there is enough space and the street is wide. And even if these sidewalks are there are many trees, signs that push the pedestrian to use the pavement which is quite dangerous and source of many accidents. We are trying to convince municipalities about this. In many municipalities, there are streets that are shared by all users, as you can see in the last photo, with a total mixity of different speeds, which is quite problematic when considering the other aggravating factors I presented in my first presentation in the first day. Next slide. Some recommendation can be figured out from here. We need to share with municipalities and with other agencies the good experiences that we are speaking about today and during the last 2 days. We need to clearly define a global leadership for municipalities and other agencies working in urban areas, like the Agency of Tourism, the Agency of Industry, and the Agency of Habitation. We need training and capacity building. Actually, we did many training sessions on road safety in Tunisia, and more than 50 engineers took part of very technical sessions about roads and streets and road safety. Also, we did it in Senegal with road authorities, and we are planning to do such activities, especially with municipalities. And actually, we are planning to do it with the municipalities of Sfax and their respective engineers here within the help of the Tunis Association of Road Safety. The experience shown by Salwa also about Nassau municipality, the experience of the Urban Agency of Greater Tunis and their guidebook should be shared. Today morning also, a webinar was also conducted between the municipality of Sfax and the municipality of Misano in Italy to share experience and to discuss technical issues, leadership approach. So there is some good initiative and they are very encouraged. But all this will not be enough. The total strategy must be adopted, both with this safe system that was presented by John, the tools, the guides should be adopted also. And this strategy must include all ministries that are involved in transportation safety, the Ministry of Local Affairs, amongst many others. And we are happy that the observatory is undertaking in the few coming months such an initiative by defining the national strategy of Tunisia, and we fully support them. Next and final slide. I want to thank PIARC, the Tunisian Road Association, the Ministry of Equipment, and the Observatory for this opportunity to express my point of view about road safety in Tunisia, and hope to see you all again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. That was a great presentation and very interesting to see how the lessons that you're learning in Tunisia are being fed back into the cycle for future projects. So thank you for sharing that perspective. So I think we can move into a few questions and the debate. We have approximately 30 minutes left in this first session. So I've been monitoring the questions in the chat pod and would like to make sure we have all 4 of our speakers still with us. Yes. Very good. So the first question I will direct to John Barrell. John, we had 2 questions that were somewhat related from Andrew and from Aditya. How would a road safety auditor who is also a subject matter expert in a specific road safety design element rationalize the temptation to point out suboptimal design of that element? And Aditya's perspective on that was, if there is a low level of professional competence with the design and the designer has overlooked safety issues, would it not be advisable that the auditor should suggest recommendations on interventions? So John, can you tackle that question?
Yes, happy to. I think it is always a temptation to try and second guess and get involved in the design. I firmly believe that if designers are aware of concerns, they will seek to address them. And certainly if it is a suboptimal design, then you need to point out the areas of deficiency. I think where you need to be very careful is on putting forward your own view on what the design solution is. For instance, if you have a horizontal curve that is inappropriate for the design speed of the road, which is not an uncommon occurrence, by all means point out that arrangement of curve in that situation will lead to a high incidence of run-off road collisions, or potentially in the opposite direction, lack of lane control resulting in a head-on collision if it's a single carriageway, due to the incompatibility between the curve radius and design speed. The solution then is to say that needs to be made appropriate for the ultimate design speed. What you do not do is say that 120 meter radius curve needs to be increased to 160 to conform with standards. But you need to point the designer into the area that they need to look at to resolve that safety problem.
Very good. So thanks, John. So another way to say it is to try to reframe the concerns in describing the performance implications, not being prescriptive about what needs to change regarding the design.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. The next question I would like to pose to Francisco. Francisco, this question came in from Nuria, who asks, in general, when a new road is being designed and I want to apply a safe design, is there any rule or parameter with which I can estimate the social benefits of increased safety in a monetary way? In the case of reduction of injured and deceased, I have, for example, IRAP rule of thumb as approximately 17% GDP per capita for a deceased. So any advice that you can give to Nuria for new road assessments?
For new road assessments, well, there could be two possibilities. One is that we can find a greenfield road, or greenfield. The road is designed in a greenfield area where there is no previously a road. So this is something completely new. So in that terms, we have just to focus on the design. There is no option. There is no other elements that we can take into consideration. The design and also the environment that we will find. I mean, so the closed environment, in order to understand which could be the different trips that we can find in this area, in this section. But if it is a road that is a rehabilitation, or it is an upgrade of an existing road, then we will have some more information. It's possible to have information in terms of the road crashes that has occurred in the existing road section. And this is a really important source of information, because the analysis of this can give us a lot of hints, a lot of information that we can use in terms of elements that we should consider for the new design. In terms of how we can estimate the reduction of fatalities or victims in the road according to the design. Well, there are some studies that can be considered and that can be used for this estimation. General estimations, because you know that for one single crash, there is a lot of factors that can be considered. So it is really complicated to separate and to split these different elements or different factors, and to make a detailed estimation on that. We can make a general estimation. And then related to this rule of thumb, you can use it and you can use it for the IRA methodology and for other methodologies, of course. But it came from this IRA methodology, where there was a study from the World Bank that has said this 17% of the GDP for the injuries and 70% for the fatalities. So you can use them in order to make this economic estimation for the reduction of, or the estimation of the social cost for the reduction of the number of accidents, if you have to do it.
Thank you, Francisco. I think clearly, I think you made the case with your presentation that, you know, regardless of whether it's a new facility or improvements to an existing facility, there are definitely points along the development of the project where the safety performance should continue to be assessed, and you can make improvements throughout that process. So very good. Thank you for that answer. A question for John from Munir. And Munir asks, I think basically, how can we do more to get the PIARC member countries involved? And maybe is there a way to, through a draft charter or other ways to get them more engaged for application of the road safety manual? Are there thoughts about how PIARC can play a more active role with these countries, and just your general thoughts on how we can be doing more to engage particularly the low and middle income countries that may not be represented here today?
You know, I think it's important to do activities like we're doing right now, is have those discussions to identify through some of the surveys that we're doing, I think are trying to accomplish bringing information into PIARC so that we understand what is valuable and can provide that back to others through the first delegate countries, through the first delegates of the different countries. I think information and requests can be brought forward, but just hearing and having that dissemination back and forth is where we're going to be able to facilitate a lot of those discussions. Again, I think activities like this are a predominant way, you know, hearing the questions today help us to refine how we're going to approach the future in terms of what we're going to be doing with PIARC. So just dialogue, I think, is critically important.
Very good. Thank you, John. Yeah, certainly the success of this virtual seminar perhaps suggests that there are some additional things that we could consider doing in the future to benefit all of the member countries of PIARC. So looking forward to the feedback about the seminar, the answers to the surveys. So thank you for that additional answer, John. Question for Ahmed. Ayman asks, are there any instructions or studies about implementing concrete blocks in the middle of streets? These blocks have led us to many accidents recently. So any thoughts about the practice of using the concrete blocks? And I think you're still muted, Ahmed.
Sorry. Actually, I think he's speaking about the medians and the use of concrete barrier inside the medians. Actually, this is not excluded. I mean, in many technical guides, they recommend the use of concrete barriers in the median. Actually, even the European standard, based on the traffic and based also on the operational speed. I think operational speed, yeah. You have to use concrete barriers in order to retain heavy trucks. This is the case in Tunisia and in many countries in LMICs. We use it even if it is not so good for light vehicles. But indeed, there are many types of concrete barrier, and there are some parameters you have to define in order to reduce the severity of the injury, and this can be reduced by using an adequate barrier. And actually, I also investigated some works by the US about the choice of about how to choose the concrete barrier, and I think that the cost-benefit analysis could be very interesting if we do analysis about how much money are we going to expend for this median with concrete when compared with the number of injuries and deaths that can be prevented, and based on that you can decide or not to implement them. So there is no international standard who will push you to do it, but you have to study your own project based on the traffic and the importance of your road. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Yes, the use of barriers certainly continues to be something that we work to improve here in the United States as well. And when it comes to concrete barriers, particularly the portable concrete barriers, the installation of those is very important to how they perform. And so if they're not properly pinned and connected, if they're not used in the proper location, then they can become a problem rather than a solution. So thank you for that perspective. I'm going to ask one more question to John Barrell, and then I see that we have one person with their hand raised. So maybe we can go to that next. But John, real quick, Esmeralda asks, since road safety audits include an interdisciplinary team and human factors should be considered, is it possible for a psychologist or a social worker to participate, or is it only looking at the technical aspect typical of engineering?
Very short answer, definitely yes. Whilst audit looks at technical aspects, it's about road user behaviour. And some of the best auditors I've worked with have a sociological or psychological background. They're not engineers. And again, one of the major misconceptions is that an auditor has to be an engineer with a minimum of 10 years experience. The more we can get those with increased knowledge of road user behaviour into the audit process, the better.
Very good, thank you, John. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you have that answer, because that's certainly something that we encourage in the practice of road safety audits here in the U.S., as well as having human factors experience and particularly the psychology part of understanding road users. So thank you for adding that. So I see in the room we have a couple of hands raised. And I think Aditya, your hand has been raised for a while. Would you like to ask your question to the panel? And I'm not hearing anything from Aditya at the moment. Is your...
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So my question to John Barrell is that, as I suggested, that considering the low level of professional competence in low and medium income countries, would it not be advisable for the auditor to suggest some clear intervention recommendations? Even the RSI guidelines, which are prepared by PIARC, they also had dealt the same issue in the same manner.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that is another point that I wanted to make, or rather a suggestion to John Milton, was that I was member of TC1 for about 8 years, from 2003 to 11, and we had produced 3 documents: guidelines on road safety audit, inspection, and work zone safety. So you had mentioned about the updating of road safety audit guidelines. Is it not time for TC1 3.1 to update the other ones as well, because it has been almost 10 years then?
I'll take the first part, John.
Yeah, John Barrell, yes, first one.
I go back to my earlier response that the auditor's role is to educate, if you like, the designer in the importance of the safety aspects. It's not to provide the design solution. If you start providing the design solution, you become part of the design team. therefore you are liable for the design results. And the essence of the auditor is he is independent from the design. There are deficiencies, there are competencies in all professions. What you need to do is to encourage them to make the most appropriate decision. Audit only considers safety. The designer has to consider far more in coming up with the final solution. Safety is important, and they have the competence and the ability to come up with an adequate design solution. So no, I wouldn't be prescriptive about giving them a design solution that I felt was appropriate.
Okay,
John?
I mean,
Yeah, thank you for your previous service to the TCs. You know, is there an opportunity to update some of those other guidelines? And I think the answer is yes. And one thing that we are trying to do is understand the priorities of the different countries. So that's why we saw safety audits as one of those documents that was primary for us to get updated. But as we go into the next cycle, certainly there can be considerations for those other guidelines and worksheets or whatever it might be, what and when we will do them as part of the consideration. So there'll be upcoming discussions, most definitely.
oh, okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you to both John Milton and John Barrell for those answers. I see that Tamam has a hand raised. Tamam, would you like to ask your question? One more try for Tamam. If you're able to unmute yourself and ask your question, we do see your hand is raised. Okay, well, in the meantime, I will redirect and I have another question for Francisco. So Francisco, with the comprehensive process that you described, can you talk about how is cost considered throughout the process? So as countermeasures are integrated into the design, and as the number of assessment stars, for example, goes from a 0 or 1 to 2 or 3, presumably there are cost implications. How is the cost managed throughout that process? Is that a concern?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. I can tell you for this process, as you can see, we have mixed different procedures. So we have the road safety, the usual ones, the road safety audits and inspections, road safety impact assessment. And then we have the procedure from IRAP. And I can tell you the procedure from IRAP is really powerful. Powerful because for two main things. The first one is that we can quantify the level of safety according to the characteristics of the infrastructure. So based on that, this quantification in terms of safety, we can also make a quantification in terms of cost, as you said. In terms of cost, that we will call it a social cost, because we can quantify which are the cost for the countermeasures that we need to implement in order to improve this level of safety. And then in terms of cost related to the reduction of the victims of the crashes. So we make this estimation, general estimation of what is the cost for each of the victims, for the fatalities and the injuries. And then we make an estimation also in terms of which is the cost of the measures that we need to implement in order to improve the level of safety of the road section. And then we can make this comparison between the savings in terms of social costs in terms of victims, and then the total cost of the infrastructures, countermeasures for the infrastructures. So we can do this at any single level of the road procedure, because we can implement this analysis in the different stages of the road design process. So we can do this at the feasibility study. We can do that then on the preliminary detailed design. And then also we can do that when the road is in operation. We can also do this considering the, instead of the road safety audit recommendations, we will do that with the road safety inspections recommendations. So we can do that for any single stage of the road design procedure. And I can tell you that it is a really powerful tool that will guide us in a very objective way, objective approach, because everything at the end, everything is focused on the infrastructure. Of course, there is other elements that we are not taking into consideration if we just focus on the infrastructure. But it is, we can say it is one of the main bases in order to understand how to improve this safety and how to improve this social cost in a very easy way. So I encourage everybody to try to use this approach of mixing the different procedures. The case study that we have presented, I have presented, is something that it is the first time that we are doing this. In general terms, I mean, this is specific, it's a kind of pilot project that we are implementing. And the results that we are getting from this mixing of procedures is really, really good. Really, really good that, as I told you, I think we should encourage everybody to do this for any single road section and for any single stage of the road design process. So, well, I hope that I have answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Francisco.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Very thorough answer. A question I would like to pose to Ahmed. Morel asks, regarding the manuals presented, which are used in French-speaking countries for design, there may be a problem of adaptability to the African context since most come from France. Isn't it time for African manuals to be put into place? So I think, Ahmed, your thoughts on this would be very welcome. And then if other panel members would like to also weigh in.
Yes, this is a very good question. Actually, there are some approaches, some equations, some recommendations that are in the French guides that are not that absolutely are not applicable applicable in our countries. And I can share with you an example of the need of the design guide for those countries, especially within the highway corridor that will join Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire to Lagos in Nigeria. And this corridor will go through different countries with different cultures, with different languages. Some of them speak in French, the others speak in English. And they have suffered many months ago about how to harmonize the French standards, the British standards, and they were turning around and around, and finally they got these guidelines and tried to summarize them in order to go with the final one, which is in my sense is not a very good approach, because when you summarize a technical guide, you will miss many recommendations that are very, very important, and you will be only focusing, let's say, on radius, on spiral curve lengths, and this will not be enough, especially with regards to the road safety. In the same time, if you want to elaborate your own technical guide, you need some data and some studies. For example, I think that the most of the guidelines that are used by our countries are based on statistical data on road safety, on accidents, and even on safety performance functions, which relate the characteristics of the roads to the accidents that were observed. Actually, in Africa, we don't have such analysis. We don't have such database. And we need to know to collect all these data in order to account for the behavior of our road users and try to adapt those guidelines to meet the correct operational speed and the user behavior. Thanks.
Thank you, Ahmed. John, perhaps I don't know if you could comment very quickly before we close out. Are you aware of the road safety manual being, or parts of the road safety manual, or even in its entirety, being adopted by a particular country and to make their own road safety manual?
So I'm not aware of that, but I do know that there is a Farsi publication that of the road safety manual, as well as China has done a translation of the manual. My assumption then is that they are incorporating significant parts of the document into their practices. In the US, in Washington State, we've done the same. So I know that it's being incorporated. We're looking at the key parts. We're bringing in the safe system. We're trying to learn from the document in itself.
Very good. Thank you, John. So I know we've only got about a minute or so left. So I think, Miguel, this is probably a good point at which to conclude the session. So I would like to once again thank our panel of speakers. Thank you to John Barrell, to Francisco, to John Milton, and to Ahmed for their excellent presentations today. And Miguel, I think you probably have instructions for us for the next part.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the panelists. Excellent presentation and excellent moderation. So yes, let's move to the networking coffee break. It will be as the previous 2 days. We will have 3 of them, and you're invited to join them. You're invited to open your microphone, to open your camera, and to share with everyone anything you want. We know that virtual seminars have a lot of opportunities, but something is missing is this networking. So we're trying to mitigate it with this session. So we will stop translation now, interpretation, and we will come back to the session 4:15 in Tunisian time, so in 15 minutes. Please feel free to join any of those 3 networking coffees. And again, a special invitation to the one about Latin America in Spanish, because it seems has been the most quiet one over the last 2 days. So I hope today a lot of you will join. Thank you. I will put the links in the chat.
So John, I thought that was John Barrell. Your tips and experience from doing road safety audits. It's funny, particularly the temptation to offer design recommendations. That's something that we do see quite a bit in the United States, and it's difficult to get people who want to dive right into the solutions to back up and be able to articulate what is the issue and what are the performance implications, and let the design team come up with a solution. That seems to be a human factors issue.
Yeah, we're all designers, and when you get a design, it's the first thing you do is say, well, that's not the way I would have done it. And the temptation is always to get the pen out and start redrawing it to the way it should be. And say, as auditors, the hardest part, I think, is to phrase the recommendation that clearly identifies the problem, but gives positive encouragement to the designers in terms of how they can improve their design, and by the same token improve safety, because that's the essential driver at the end of the day. Individual designers can come up with put 100 designers together in a room and come up with 100 different solutions. So there is no one perfect answer. All you're doing is, in fact, taking that step backwards and saying, okay, how would we expect road users to behave in this circumstance? Is it obvious? Is it safe? Is it usable? And getting those who understand human behavior far better than a design-orientated engineer is a major benefit, because you always come away and think, yeah, that's right. I hadn't thought about it in that context.
Okay, so good evening to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to this interesting meeting. Congratulations to the organizers. And as introduced by the speaker, I'm the General Secretary of the European Federation of Driving Schools, and I would like to show you who we are and what we do for increasing the road safety in Europe and at the global level. IFA currently represents 23 national driving school associations, and we have 11 affiliate members, and we are 7 road safety partners as a university, academic associations, and all the different stakeholders involved in road safety. Which are our aims? Our aims are standardization of education and examination of future drivers, and standardization of education on the examination of driving instructors, and minimum standard of driving schools. What we are doing, we have made the last 3 publications regarding the road safety activities and specialized in the training, and I hope that we will be able to share and disseminate this publication to everybody before the end of June. These publications are concerning the driving license in Europe, the new model for a new decade. So I'm trying to reach the objectives of the European Commission to reduce to 50% the death on the roads. So driving license in Europe is a comparison between the different training systems we already have in Europe and the new horizon, just as a position paper for just to let them understand, so to the institution, which we think could be the best way to get these important results. What we are doing, we have created the IFA training matrix. The IFA training matrix is a new model of training, is a new concept of training that passing through the driving school certification and not only the exams. Because we have understood that the main problem around the world is that the people go to the driving school not for learning properly how to drive, but just for getting the license. And we have to go ahead of this concept, cultural factors, and we have to think that now we have to delegate the responsibilities to the driving schools and to the private body for the examinations of the candidates. So currently in Europe, we are living a very huge problem regarding the lack of examiners. So most of the examiners are retiring themselves, and there is no persons enough for replace this important role they are doing. Also during the COVID restrictions, you can imagine that for getting the license in most of the countries really enlarged the time required for doing the exams. So we want to adequate the curriculum and the training to the new vehicles, so to the markets, because it's time to think about the level of level 2 or 3 of the SIA scales. So using the ADS and the electrical vehicle during the training and during the exams. And then, as mentioned before, starting with training free from examination and definitely create awareness drivers, so aware drives that can reduce the number of the deaths on the road. It's just a few seconds to describe briefly the EFA matrix. How it works is a concept that we have to separate the skills and the knowledge. In the blue column, you can see the topics regarding the road safety that we think has to be done into the driving school and has to be certified by the driving instructors. And on the green column on the right side, we can see the topics that we think that are regarding knowledge and must be done. We recommend to be done in the driving school and must be passed by an evaluation, public or private body. It doesn't matter, but definitely is a light exams than today. And how we can certify this, because we know that also in the past there were a lot of cheating during the exams or not properly done. So today we have the right tool, the right devices for monitoring, for checking. As you can see on the right, on the left side of the top of the screen, you can see some of the tools that we currently use for instance, in Portugal or in different countries. These are applications that can verify and record the tracks of the students during the training, and we'd like to use it on the exams as well. We are currently do some activities in the lab we created. This is something as an academy, just to have the scientific support from the universities on developing the right value of the training. We currently are members of SimSafe project. It's a European funded project for understanding the role of simulators into the training for becoming driving instructors and for becoming novice drivers. We as a European Federation, we are not against the use of simulator, but we strongly support this simulator just in some situation, as the situation very complicated to reply into the real training. I'm speaking about bad weather condition, maybe understanding how to use the gearbox, and or in the traveling by night. So the situation when across Europe is very complicated to reproduce all the year. And we are doing lobbying activities at the DG Move. DG Move is the Minister of Transport of European Commission. So we are working a lot there. And also we are invited to do the UNEC road safety global events. And one of the things that we are presenting and supporting, as already mentioned in our publication and in defense metrics, is the need to update the training curriculum for getting the license to the market and to the society need. So for instance, we have a very high limitation, because currently in some country is not allowed the use of the ADAS during the exams. So it means the instructor, they don't use or they don't buy or disabilitate the ADAS during the training, because the students, they are not interested in this, and just because during the exam the candidates are not evaluated on these devices. One of the things that we are defining is a new role as a road safety expert. So is a person who will be able to work as examiners or as driving instructors. So based on the concept of a university, so we have a central curriculum. So the 75% of the study of the training course that the person has to do is the same. Also, if he wants to become a driving instructor or examiners. The remaining 25% will be a specific topics on becoming a driving instructor or becoming examiners. So the biggest problem that we already have with the examiners and the instructors is that they don't speak the same language, because they have their own background, both, and so they have the different interpretations about the rules and how to evaluate the candidates, how to prepare it, and so on. And we are working abroad, Europe, and we are starting just from this year to export some experience. We have been called by the Saudi Arabian Minister of Transport, and we are participating on developing and dissemination of the driving instructor curriculum, currently special for the female, because as you know, from 2018, Saudi Arabia women, they gained the right to drive, and now there is a big problem that are missing female driving instructors. So we are starting this process in cooperation with SEPA and AWEAM, and we are preparing female driving instructors, European female driving instructors, to send in Saudi Arabia for at least 3 months for teaching the new driving instructors. We have taken, me in person, I've been there for 1 month and a half between January and February. I've seen a very interesting concept of training, and it was a very good experience. So we invite to take part to this project to everybody is qualified as a European driving instructor. We will start with the male recruitment for European driving instructors, I guess, after the summer, because actually we have a lot of problem with the COVID restrictions in Saudi Arabia, so they have closed the border, and it's not very easy to go there to live this interesting experience. A few weeks ago, we started with a new cooperation with a Kenyan Boda Boda Association. Boda Boda are motorcyclists, so are riders, that they are more than 1 million people who is working on the road, delivering goods, delivering passengers, and we would like to understand now how we can participate and share knowledge and improve our skills and knowledge each other. And we will update you soon. I guess that before the end of the year, we will collect interesting results. We are starting as well some cooperation in Africa with Nigeria and Togo. So summarizing, we believe that technology is profoundly changing the way we work, and we are committed to ensuring that the laws align with the need of society and the economic market, respecting the environment. In Europe, around 80% of drivers obtained their license at least 20 years ago. The roads have changed, the vehicles are changing, only the driver struggles to change. Quality private training must accompany this challenge. Technology can help us improve the quality of training, especially in low and middle income countries where limited economic resources have been a problem for the dissemination of quality driving training. So saying that, I just would like to invite you to see a video as our IFA manifesto, who describe the IFA's activities and what we want to achieve in the next years. And now the video will start, and I invite you also to visit our website, because today, for the Global Week of Road Safety from UNEC, we launched our new video regarding the reduction of speed in the urban area. So I think that I have to give the floor to the organizer, who will be able to share the video. Thank you for your attention. I will remain available for any other question.
Yes, let me put this video in the screen for you.
I stop the...
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Picardi, for this great presentation. Very, very interesting. Excuse me, I have to switch to the English channel. So I said, thank you, Mr. Picardi, for this great presentation. It's very, very interesting to share your experience and to make the other countries aware about such initiative, and also all the workshops you shared with the African and Asian countries. This is simply fantastic. I think that such initiative could be very interesting also in North Africa, where the young users' behavior is actually enough dangerous in many cases. And I think that their training is not strong enough. I personally has my father victim of serious injury due to a young user aged 18 and who lost the vehicle control and injured him while working on the sidewalk. So I'm a little bit interested in doing such initiative in Tunisia. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
So Miguel, we go back to the presentation.
Yes, I don't know if Mr. Ali wants to share his screen.
Yeah.
Put it.
Just put his presentation in order to introduce him if you want.
Je peux partager?
Oui, Mr. Ali, I'm going to present you, then give you the floor. Okay?
Okay, merci.
So Mr. Ali Helali is from Tunisia. He's our colleague. He's a professor assistant in mechanical engineering. He is the head of the Department of Transport Technology and Engineering from the period 2014 to 2020 in Sousse. And he is now the Dean of the Higher Institute of Transport and Logistics of Sousse since last December. He obtained his Ph.D. in 2009 from the National School of Engineers of Tunis, and he has published several scientific research papers, and he is now supervising many Ph.D. dissertations mainly related to road safety. So if you want to share your screen, and the floor is yours, Mr. Ali.
Okay, merci. Donc,
thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you so very much. Good morning to you all. Do you have my presentation up on the screen? Yes. Good morning to you all. And congratulations to the organizers of this international seminar. I am Director of Transport at the Sousse. Today I'm going to be presenting some research projects on road safety aimed at improving the situation in this field, particularly in low and middle income countries. The presentation is analysis and working on the seriousness of accidents in low and middle income countries. The overview of my presentation is the research team for road safety, the objectives of the research, factors in accidents and methods using, examples, 3 examples of research projects, and then to conclude, we'll have recommendations and conclusions. Thus, here we've got the multidisciplinary team, a researcher, myself. There we have mechanical engineering, Hisham Hassine, Dr. Mabrouk, also transport engineering, Dr. Hamdi Ayed, civil engineering. Thus, it is a multidisciplinary team that works on research projects. And this team has worked on projects in a set of different countries, in different areas in the Mediterranean. Tunisia, Lebanon, Maghreb, Greece, Syria, etc. With our research projects right now underway, a thesis that is called Modeling Vehicle Crash to Identify Contributing Factors of Injury Severity. Many master's theses are also being devoted to similar on these topics, PLS regression for study and provision of the impacts of road safety factors in Tunisia, identification and analysis of the main factors for seriousness of road accidents in Tunisia, identifying the factors contributing to the severity of vehicles involved crashes, National Road number 12 in Tunisia, also inspection and modeling over dispersion crash data and unsignaled intersection, the Napoli case. Also the influence of the new traffic calming device, speed kidney in speed and driver behavior. And this with Sirin Bouassa. Another project, identification of a high-risk rural intersection and selection of countermeasures. This is in Naples in Italy, and several other research projects. Now, the objectives of the research work is to identify black spots in the accidents, to undertake a diagnosis and inspection of the black spots on the route network, identify the main factors of serious accidents, road accidents in Tunisia, specify the correlations amongst them, foresee the impact of the main factors on the frequency and seriousness of the accidents in Tunisia, provide countermeasures to improve road safety in Tunisia, and propose recommendations and to policy decision makers. Thus, I'm going to give you the risk factors, starting with six human factors. Yes. You have to continue to speak in French or we'll have a problem with translation. So the risk factors, human factors, include gender, driver's age, the speed, use of alcohol, etc., driver's experience, etc. Then vehicle risk factors, the vehicle age, the type of vehicle, the number of vehicles involved in the crash. We also have infrastructure factors, which are geometric characteristics, control characteristics. For instance, in the United States, the main factors in accidents are human factors, infrastructure factors, and vehicle factors. Essentially, it's the same image in different countries. And now, environmental factors include weather conditions, the season, road surface condition, lighting, street lighting conditions, then temporary factors, time of day, as well as the day of the week, etc. And then other factors include socioeconomic factors, traffic volume conditions, regional factors and local factors, etc. The method used are essentially the methods that you have before you. Method soft computing. We also have statistical methods, multilinear regression, for instance. This is one of the main components at PNS, which is either a list or regression, etc. I would begin with the first project, thus. This is a PLS regression for the study and provision of the impacts, the factors of Tunisian road safety. This is to identify the main factors of road safety in Tunisia and to foresee the impact of the factors on frequency and seriousness of accidents in Tunisia. This was undertaken in 2019. Now, for instance, the statistics on the accidents, 8 years from 2010 to 2017, we've got the major factors, which are human factors, the driver's distraction. 50% represents 50%, speed 46%, and in the other factors linked 33%, in those are the factors related to the vehicle, 33% light vehicles, 18% motorcycles, 14% light trucks, and 20% pedestrians.
This is mainly 61%, and this is 15% and 10% for the local roads. This is the variables, the classification of variables in the software in the PLS regression method. We also use the impact of the different factors, the global factors, the factor of the human factor, the vehicle factor, the road factor, etc. So there is a very significant relationship, the number of accidents, that is the Y response. It's very well explained by the different factors. It's very similar in 2012, 2013, and from the 2015, 2017, you can see them. We are showing the main factors, the passenger factor, the passenger vehicle, the factor vehicles, and then also this has to do with the list of the database of the police. We try to sometimes the police tends to eliminate the cause of the accident, and the majority of the factors are linked to the number of accidents, except for that fact, for the different factors. And to prevent the prevention of the number of accidents, you see the number of passengers, vehicles, and the driver, and you see there is a certain agreement, concurrence between these two, that since between 2010 and 2012, there was a big difference between the number of accidents. This is because of the prevention actions. And yeah, this is what we have to do to include the factor of economic growth. This is economic, demographic, etc. We saw what was the impact of the type of road. You see the residential roads, and then the national roads, and then regional roads. And you can see that we have them in this graph. There is a big relationship with the variables. The same in the year 2014 and 2017, we have the same joining of the figures here. Agglomeration. So this is present in the kind of vehicle. You see the light vehicles, you have the buses, you have the light buses or trucks, and you have the heavy vehicles. This is a prevention. And this is how we measure that. We will look into the different impact of the kind of month or the kind of week or the time of the day in which the death occurred. We want to look at the efficiency of these measures, looking at the different factors. And the roads are more dangerous when they are in residential areas, and then national roads, and then regional roads. There is a certain correlation in the months of December, August, March, and May. The number of deaths is on during the weekend and Wednesday. So what would be our recommendations? We have to improve the infrastructures. We have to improve the quality of the surface of the roads in relation with the amount of the traffic. We have to improve the signals of the roads that are most dangerous, and the drivers and the people in the vehicles to use the safety belt, the belt. The second part of this project, the seat belt. The second part of the project, do I have to continue in French? If you want to speak in English, what you have to do is you change your channel. You cannot change the language when we are sharing the screen. No, I will continue in French. If you want, we can have 5 minutes. We can wait for 5 minutes. No, to identify the factors that contribute to the severity of vehicles involved in crashes. National road number 12. The road. This is in this part of the Sousse province. It is urban, and the other part is on this area, rural, and then we have the different factors for severity. You have the minor injury, no injury, serious injury, and fatal injury. This is the method of having the 4 levels or 4 stages, the variable selection, and then the model selection, and MNL model, and then to the determination of the risk factors, and to have a checklist of these determining factors. The main risk factors may increase or decrease the severity of the accident, the type of collision. This is a decrease, therefore, the severity of the accidents without any injury or with a minor injury, etc. As a conclusion, the different checklists, we can choose the factors that have had a serious impact. We can have a short list of these factors that, as a conclusion, this is based on the regression analysis tests and no multi-collinearity problem. This depends on the type of collision, and then we can see the severity of the collision. This is the inspection and modeling of dispersion crash data and unsignalized areas. This was the objective was to the identification of high risk intersections based on the inspection of road safety. You can, this is a methodology, the pictures of the site, the detailed observation of safety features, the driver's behavior observation, etc., etc. The methodology or the tools used, the GPS, and we identified the high-risk intersections in Napoli. This is the identification of high-risk intersections. Vertical and horizontal lines, the distance to the site, the signs, the horizontal and vertical signs, and all these factors. We can determine the risk index and the safety index. We try to classify them, and we can then do the validation of the safety index. We can observe the differences in the crashes and also the difference in the margin of error. Then we choose what is the most dangerous intersection. And this was in Naples, Italy, in Naples. And this is a selection of countermeasures of our case study, the selection criteria, the essential countermeasures, and then we choose the impact of having applied the countermeasures. For each countermeasure, we have the percentage of decreasing the number of accidents or crashes, so reducing the percentage of crashes. And this is, we see the benefit cost ratio to convince the politicians of using these solutions. These are the conclusions and some recommendations. The quality of the results obtained depend on the quality and availability of the data. There are great problems to obtain data. We need to have microscopic data about the accidents or crashes, and there is no funds to encourage research of road safety in Tunisia. The need to put into place a master's on construction, the need to train those people who will be acting for road safety in Tunisia. And we are open to having partnerships with ONSR and the Ministry of Transport and Logistics, PIARC, the Ministry of Equipment, in order to organize a meeting in Dubai in 2021. And we are members of the Committee on Road Safety of PIARC. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
And the
research that you've just presented, these projects that are underway for PhD and master's research projects in terms of the road safety works underway in each of the countries, and the work that you've done in Tunisia, as well as the protection models that you've worked on. And I thank you very much for having accepted to share your research with us. Please stay on with us for the Q&A session that we will be moving on to very shortly.
So without being, we are going to now to listen to our colleague Antonino as the last speaker, but a very important contribution. Antonino Tripodi is a technical director at Fred Engineering in Italy. He's a civil engineer and Ph.D. in transport engineering with over 18 years of professional experience in transport domain. His main fields of expertise are transport and mobility planning, impact assessment, road safety management, road traffic crash databases and systems, road safety analysis. Antonino, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. I will share my screen. Okay, I guess you can see it.
Perfect. Just put the presentation mode. Good.
Yes. Thank you again. So I'm going to present a project that we have realized a couple of years ago, founded by the World Bank, and realized together with the University of Rome, with the objective of developing a simplified methodology for road safety risk assessment based on automated video image analysis. The objective of the World Bank was generally to assist developing countries in assessing road traffic crash risk, but in a manner that was low cost and quick, knowing the difficulties in sometimes of having reliable crash databases and reliable information about crashes, and also lack of resources to implement analysis on road infrastructures. And so the World Bank was willing to develop a procedure that is not too much time consuming and is also low cost and so affordable by everyone without specific equipped vehicles, for instance, and as much as possible automatic. So we started developing this methodology based on a typical risk formula, putting together the danger, the vulnerability, and the exposures. Thus, the likelihood that a crash occur, the risk of injury when a crash occur, and the amount of activity to which a road user is exposed to a risk. So basically the traffic. And we developed this methodology, which you will see is in some way similar in terms of result to HIRAP assessments, even if we will explain that the level of detail is quite different. But the methodology gives a granularity of 100 meters. So it means that every 100 meters of the road infrastructure, we are able to calculate a risk on the road, a risk that a crash occurs. The methodological framework is relatively simple. So we first of all select the type of road users we want to analyze, for which we want to analyze the risk. So we divide it between pedestrians and cyclists and motor vehicles. Here under motor vehicles, you see a first, let's say, simplification where we put together the cars, the motorcycles, the trucks, different kind of vehicles, even if we know that they have a different kind of risk. Then when we look at the road network, we identify automatically the presence of accesses and intersections, and we calculate the danger and the vulnerability both for road sections, so for the 100 meters of road sections, and for the accesses and intersections. And then, based on the danger and vulnerability, we calculate the risk score for each road user category. We also have introduced what we call the global risk score, which is a way to put together all the risk that we have identified for the road usage categories. We will give more information on this in the next slides. And then we assess some risk levels. So we transform the numbers that we find for the risk in risk categories. To calculate danger and vulnerability, we use typically the crash modification factors, which are quite common factors that are well known in literature. So it's multiplicative factors used to compute the expected number of crashes after modifying the road characteristics. So basically, a crash modification factor higher than 1 is assumed to increase the danger or the vulnerability for a given crash type. And the vulnerability is also influenced in our methodology by the operating speed of the vehicle. Here you see the list of road attributes that we have considered for the 3 road user categories: motor vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. The attributes in red are automatically identified by video image analysis. So we have developed a software that automatically identifies these attributes. Those highlighted in blue are obtained directly from OpenStreetMap. You know that OpenStreetMap is a freeware repository also of information, and so especially the area type. So to know if we are in urban or rural environment is retrieved directly from that source. We also use an app that is called RoadLab Pro to assess the road surface conditions. And the other road attributes are collected manually, because not all the road attributes can be collected by videos, at least at the time when we did the methodology. But we selected only road attributes that are relatively easy and quick to be collected manually. This is just to give you some information about this global risk score. It's actually a score that put together the risk scores obtained for the 3 user categories. And it's a way to take into account also the likelihood that a certain category is effectively present on the road sections. To give you an example, if we are looking to a motorway, which is very dangerous for pedestrians, but it's likely that pedestrians are not using or not present on the motorway. So we wanted to try to weight in the presence of pedestrians and cyclists and to get a global risk score, so a unique, let's say, indicator of risk that consider the 3 categories altogether. Then we have transformed these risk levels for each single road categories and for the global risk score into risk levels according to 5 colors, from green to black, where green is a very low crash risk, etc. And this is let's say the methodological framework. What we did is to develop a small software that automatically take into input the video to be analyzed. It takes into input also the output of the application that I mentioned before, the RoadLab Pro application for the road surface condition, and also the manual attributes. And based on this, it automatically computes the risk on every 100 meters of road. So this is a typical output of the software, where you see that each dot here is 100 meters of road, and the colored scale is indicating the risk of any crash. And in addition to this, you can obtain also other information. Naturally, you can see the risk for the different road users, pedestrians, cyclists, and motor vehicles. And you can also obtain some summaries, especially 2 summaries. One is what we call the overall summary, which gives the road attributes that were coded for each 100 meter of road. So, for instance, the speed, the curvature, the road conditions, etc. And this can be downloaded from the software for using external software like Excel. And also the risk summary, where each single factor leading to the risk is calculated. So the vulnerability of motor vehicles, the danger of motor vehicles, its risk, etc., etc., in terms of numbers. These numbers then are associated to a level of risk, as I said before. But the question is how to perform the video filming. Since we were requested to develop something that is low cost, very easy to use, and very easy to find, we selected equipment that was available on the market and almost at low cost. So we used a simple dash cam. In this case, we used the Nextbase 612. You have to use a smartphone, that is usually your smartphone if you make the video analysis, a power cable. The RoadLab Pro application is a freeware application, and a blank sheet, which is which is something that we use it to calibrate the software actually. The cost of all this equipment was around 200 euros. So you see that with 200 euros, you can go on the field, collect your information, come back to the office, input your information in the software and get your preliminary results. We have implemented this methodology in actually 3 countries, Mozambique, Liberia, and recently also in Comoros for the World Bank. Here you have an example of application in Mozambique, where we recorded around 500 kilometers of roads in different national highways. And this is one example of results. So in a map, you can get your risk values, each 100 meters of road. The software also gives the possibility to download a KML file for risk mapping in other software like Google Maps, for instance, just for easy of seeing. And naturally, through the elaboration of the data, we can make also other data elaborations. For instance, this was made in Excel very simply, where we can compare the risk factors for motor vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, for all the type of all single roads, and we can get an overview of how risky is the road section. This is a typical elaboration that we provided to World Bank. Some considerations to conclude my presentation. First of all, as I said before in the introduction, the request was to make a very simple tool to make preliminary analysis. So if we are not talking about a tool that is, let's say, similar to IRAP, for instance, just to mention the most common methodology that is used for risk assessment, it's another level, let's say, of analysis where we want to compensate the fact that we miss road crash information and we miss capabilities to make a proper assessment, an in-depth assessment like IRAP. So if we want to make something very quickly and very low cost, to have a preliminary overview of the risk on the road, this could be a tool. And as I said before, not all the road attributes can be automatically recognized with sufficient reliability and precision, at least at the time when we developed the software, because the IT engineering for video analysis is moving very fast nowadays, so something could have changed. And so we included only the attributes, the road attributes that can be collected manually, but that are not highly time-consuming. And we made also an in-depth analysis of the video analysis capabilities, of the literature, etc., that led to the final selections of the road attributes and also of the hardware to be used for data collection for the video analysis. The final product is completely open source. It's available through the World Bank, which is the owner of these tools. There is no licenses to be purchased, no specific requirements for the tool installation, except from some specialized software that are anyway free of charge. And as you have seen before, you only have to spend 200 euros, more or less, to get the material, the equipment needed to make the analysis. But the methodology is useful to have an overview of the road safety risk, especially when you don't have crash data. For decisions on interventions, etc., there is a more in-depth analysis to be made, like road safety inspections, for instance, etc. Let's say that this tool is useful to identify priority road sections to be assessed afterwards. But still, it's very powerful because it gives with quickly and very low cost some information about the risk on the road, and it's we find it very useful, especially in low and medium income matrix. I thank you for your attention. Thank you again. If you want to contact me for any question about this tool or about any other activity, road safety activity, be free to contact me. And I will leave the questions to the next session.
Thank you, Antonino, for this presentation. Actually, this was very interesting presentation, and you added a new layer of tools to those that we have seen during the 3 days about road assessment with regards to the road safety. Yes, actually, we are going to start the question and answer session, and I will ask for every speaker the questions that have been given in the chat box. But before we start, I have let's say a question to Antonino. For the method you have adopted in your work within the tools of the World Bank, you are showing that you can show the risk at every point, every 100 meter. As far as I know, there is a way to average those risks over some length of the road in order to give some homogeneous result and help the road authorities to choose the right path to investigate and to maintain to road safety. Do you think that putting the risk every 100 meter could be easily assessed by local road authorities?
Well, that's a good point, Ahmed. Actually, we know that, for instance, IRAP make these, let's say, calculation of the homogeneous sections, which easy actually to average the differences every 100 meters. Imagine if you have 100 meter with high risk and the successive one with very low risk. This could be something that is not fully correct, and so the IRAP methodology they usually try to smooth, let's say, the calculation of on longer sections, actually longer homogeneous sections. This is a tool, and when we have developed this tool, actually the initial intentions was also to make a kind of a smoothing over longer sections. But then we realized that through the tool, you obtain a quite homogeneous consecutive risk assessment. It's not so different. So you are almost never going from the very high risk to the very low risk. So we decided to keep the 100 meter to have a higher granularity. Anyway, the tool allows to download in Excel or in a CSV file all the risk factor, and then the smoothing can be done afterward outside the tool. It's not a problem. So we wanted to leave open just to give more possibilities to the users and to the policymakers.
Yeah, quite interesting. Thank you for this answer. Actually, I have a question to Mr. Picardi that was posted by our colleague Leonardo from the TC. The question is, are driving school going to teach automatic assistance devices and autonomous vehicles approach for new students and older drivers who need an up-to-date?
Yes, we're thinking that this is the right way to proceed, because as I mentioned in my presentation, for instance, in Europe, we have this huge problem because most of the drivers, they got the license more than 20 or 25 years ago. So there are changes in the vehicles, but are not updated the skills and the knowledge of the drivers. And we propose a lifelong learning system for the licensing as well, every 10 years or depending, following the technologies proposed by the car manufacturers. And for novice drivers, one of the things that we propose is to produce at the European level and a gradual licensing system. So we have good best practices in some countries, as in Austria, as in Estonia, but also abroad, Europe, in US, the graduate driving license. So it means we can start learning the basis skills for getting the license, then collect experience, and then in the second phase, the students we can approach the ADAS and the new technologies that is currently changing. So we totally support this concept of introducing this kind of learning. And the matrix we proposed is speaking about this. So unlink to the exam. Also because update an exam, update the bureaucracy, the ministerial, the traffic department rules is really more complicated than update the private sector, that you can easily update the training to the needs of social society.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. Another question, Mr. Picardi, is from our colleague from Tunisia. Since in Tunisia we have the driving license can be obtained at the age of 18, yeah. So she's asking, don't you think that minimizing the age to get driver license is one of the reasons that increase the number of accidents? Is there any trend, do you think?
But not in Europe. In Europe, they are most of the countries, they are introducing a lower age for starting to get the license. So from 16 or 17 years old, the students, they can start. But these are the countries where have been introduced the concept of a second phase license. So they can start, but only accompanied by parents or relatives, so people that can supervise the activity of driving. Definitely seeing the statistics, is it true that novice drivers, they are more involved into the accident, but the biggest number of accidents for some of the European statistics are involving the drivers from 23, 24 years to the 25 years, not automatically from 18 years old. But as ever, one of the biggest role is played by the enforcement. If there is no enforcement enough, it's not very easy to let them understand which are also the consequences that they can have in case of accident and so the rest.
Merci, Monsieur Picardi. Une autre question qui va être...
Another question, Mr. Picardi, to Mr. Helali, by one of the colleagues of the ministry. You mentioned that in the accident assessment, there was a question asked by... Yes. Yes, I'm asking you a question, please. I said that Madame Fett of the ministry and we'd like to thank the ministry for her participation. You mentioned that in the accident list that the police sometimes does not mention the causes related to the accident. And is this just a reality, or is this something that you yourself saw personally? Thank you. Thank you. Yes. The police, they always have as responsible for the accident be the vehicle or be the driver. I don't know whether this is true in all the low-income countries. Never the state, somebody, the idea is to blame the driver. This is my point of view. the statistics, because of this, are always they're not 100% reliable. Regarding the results, particularly if the factor that is infrastructure, one is not going to mention that. In the last accident in the northwest, in the mountain areas, in that case, one can see clearly that the accidents are essentially due to the infrastructure, caused by the infrastructure. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Presently, if I can add something, this is the case in most countries. The data collected have a trend to include the person as the main responsible because of high speed or doing things that are forbidden. And we know that many a time this infrastructure is responsible, but this is difficult to quantify. And the approaches presented by the different colleagues during this seminar sometimes is to try to get reliable data regarding the role played by infrastructure in the accidents.
So another question for Mr. Antonino.
Another question for Mr. Antonino.
Yeah, I'm speaking now in English. Mr. Antonino, the tool that was developed, is it free for the LMICs? And second thing, why did you choose it a step of 100 meters? Why not more, and why not less?
I start from the second question, 100 meter. 100 meter because it's actually basically the standard that we found in the literature for similar tools, especially IRAP use the 100 meters. So we wanted to try to be consistent with that approach. And not more because, as I explained before, we give the possibility to get the data and to smooth or put together the data afterwards, after the analysis. So for longer section, we can find a way to average the risk level on longer section than 100 meters. And concerning the availability to low and medium income countries, at my knowledge, yes. I can tell you that recently, some months ago, World Bank wanted to use this tool in Comoros Island. And they asked us for small support just to support the local people on how to use the tool, actually. I think it's a case-by-case provision of the software. It's not something that you will find on the website, but you can get in touch with the World Bank representative in your country and ask for it. And, or if you want, you can email me and I will drive you to the people that are in charge for this. Anyway, it's free of charge, so anybody is free to use it. There is no issue for that.
Yeah, thank you. And I can add that these kind of tools must be used in a correct manner, because you are going to give some recommendation and some conclusion to the road authorities, and it must not be biased. So
absolutely, this is an important point, Ahmed, if I can. It's important also to understand why which is the benefit of the tool, what it can do and what it cannot do. So, for instance, it cannot be a substitute of the IRAP methodology, for instance, because this could lead to different results. It's really a tool that gives you a first idea of the risk on the road, but not to lead to concrete recommendations and to concrete solutions. Then you need to analyze more in depth. It's important to know this.
Absolutely, yeah. Another question for one participant from Spanish speaking countries. Thank you, Miguel, for the translation. So the question is for Mr. Picardi. Based on your experience, which method do you consider the most successful one for driving, particularly taking into account that in most of the accidents, the driver is accountable?
Okay, definitely you get the point. This is the reason why we introduce the IFA training metrics. So we want to create a tool to create and aware drivers, not just drivers full of knowledge. We say that always. Until now, the ministries of transport or interior, so the body who manage the exams, they are always focused to get drivers prepared on the highway code, but not thinking drivers. And if you want to prepare and to have next generation of drivers as a thinking drivers, that people that is able to understand and why has to do something or not to do something else, and which are the consequences of the behaviors, we have to try to unlink the driving licensing curricula from the exam and just to understanding the things and why we have to drive safely, because everybody is will win by this right behavior. And in the second thing is to introduce something as a recap. Actually, we can call a second phase license or something as a periodical training also for drivers, because also the European Commission is thinking in this direction, because with the aging of population, everybody is understanding that currently the things will be worse day by day, because we are in place to the aging of population and we need to update. Also, I've seen a question posed to me directly, is the problem is this new kind of vehicle with a lot of ADAS is not very easy to be managed by the experienced drivers also, because sometimes in the driving school they are required to us to show this, how the drivers can manage this kind of vehicles. So people use it to buy a new car, but at the end is not able to understand how it works, the systems. And also for the hybrid vehicles or electrical vehicles, at the end, there is a new techniques for driving these kind of vehicles, and people has to spend time for understanding how they works the system. So we have to rethink most of things.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Picardi. Actually, I think we have time to take this last question by our colleague Farid. The question is for you, Mr. Tripodi. Since you are doing an assessment for all the road users, when you are assessing a road that is 2 by 3 lanes, are you assessing every lane? I mean, the one in the left, the median, and the one in the right, or are you assessing the whole platform? And the second thing, do you undertake the assessment by night in order to see the visibility risk?
No, we are not assessing, the tool is not for assessing each single lane separately. The whole carriageway is considered, and the number of lanes is one of the variables that we take into consideration in the methodology, in the algorithm to calculate the risk. The number of lanes and also the width of the lanes. And it's not done for assessment by night also, only by day, by daytime. And so we don't consider the visibility in terms of risk. So this is also why I was saying before, this tool is useful to get a first impression of the risk, but it's not complete like other tools. So it's important to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you. I think that this is all the questions that have been posted in the chat box, and actually there is no intervention that is asked for. So I thank you again for your time, for your presentation, and for your patience to answer to all these questions and to interact with the other speakers. And I think, Miguel, that we can now go to the last session if the time is okay.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for chairing this session, and thank you very much for the interpreters' very interesting presentations. So yes, let's move to the next aspect of the seminar, almost the last one. We'll have the closing ceremony, closing session, sorry, and we will have John Milton addressing some of the technical conclusions of the seminar. So John, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Miguel. And I'm not sure, do you have slides for me here, or would you just like me to present?
Sorry, I will make you able to present right away. You can do it.
Oh, and that's fine. I'll just go ahead and discuss out of memory here. What I'd like to do is talk about the different sessions that we had during this discussion. In road safety in low and middle income countries and UN targets was the very first discussion that we had, with a really excellent presentation on global road safety, the Stockholm Declaration, and the UN resolution in the second decade of action. We followed up with a discussion on safe systems and the importance in safe systems across the globe for safety. Finally, we closed that first session on an overview of low and middle income country issues with what are the priority areas for road safety issues within those low and middle income countries. So an excellent series of presentations. We then moved into session 2 with road safety audit strategies, countermeasures in low and middle income countries, as well with case studies. So the first presentation was on higher parliamentary committee for 2019 major crashes in the Ain-Senussi road information in Tunisia. And a lot of that was discussing diagnostics and countermeasures. So bringing in those issues of how to understand what is happening on the road and what to do about it. We talked about road database and crash statistics in Tunisia, pointing out the importance of driving down crashes. The next session was on road safety audit and inspections on long road sections, the Trans-Maghrabian case study, a very excellent case study to help us understand the issues of road safety audits and inspections over long sections, and how assessing infrastructure safety around metro stations. We also had a case study in Quito and a very excellent discussion about what to do in particular circumstances where the context might be different, in particular around metro stations. We opened the second day with a road safety developments in Côte d'Ivoire, considering management and leadership issues. We all know that management and leaderships are critical for us to be able to address road safety, and that was a very good discussion overall. Road safety developed in South Africa, the effects of road safety culture. It was important for us to understand that road safety culture plays such an important part in road safety overall, in particular in South Africa, some of the issues that they face with the idea that improving road safety culture will improve the crash statistics in that country. The next discussion was on putting ambitious targets, IRAP and road safety audits together to save lives. And in this case, we talked about Vietnam in a presentation on IRAP and how that was done in that particular country. And then a large-scale safety assessments and action, the ability to look at a network to be able to do something and present it on the India IRAP experience. Our next discussion was on the issue of effective countermeasures. And again, we can't underestimate the value of understanding countermeasures and applying those countermeasures to the road safety issues and problems that we face on an everyday basis. And essentially, this was on the international experience and approach in road safety, effective countermeasures, experience with proven countermeasures, an excellent presentation on focusing on those countermeasures that we're seeing very good return on investment, urban road modifications in Greater Tunisia and accounting for vulnerable road users. Once again, the issue of all road users, particularly vulnerable road users, and what we can do about their safety is an important part. Road safety vehicle and automation, called the sixth pillar of road safety, and how Italy is incorporating that into their overall road safety practices. On the third day, we focused this on road safety audits, manuals, and procedures, and really brought in the discussion about common misconception about what road safety are and what they are not, and particularly at the international level. We talked as well about approach to comprehensive road safety assessments through the entire design process, making sure that when we do these road safety audits and when we do these road safety assessments, we continue to do it throughout design. We had a presentation on the road safety manual and PIARC, the manual bringing forth the safe system approach, the online opportunity for you to go out and assess that manual for yourself and to download that important information. We also focused on road safety design audits in the experience in Tunisia over the past 15 years, and really a learning experience for us to understand how in a low and middle income countries, these road safety audits are providing benefits to the individual countries. In closing, we talked about new recent research in road safety in low and middle income countries and the value of research in moving us forward in the way that we assess and look at road safety. Technology and training, is it a threat or opportunity in the current challenges in the field of training? How technology is changing scenarios of driver training for low and middle income countries was an important part of understanding and moving safety forward by providing those road users who are in those larger vehicles additional training. We talked about crash gravity analysis and prediction in Tunisia with some really great methodological approaches that were identified, and also presented a simplified methodology for safety risk assessments based on automated video image analysis. And using that as a tool, we're going to see more and more, I think, in the future as far as road safety assessments using video technology. And it's a real good way to understand and identify in field what is happening and what we can do about those issues that we are seeing. So with that, I really appreciate this seminar. I've got a lot of great information. We hope that you have as well. I know there are a series of questions and some of us have answered in the chat box some of those questions, but as they continue, we're more than happy to answer them as they come in. So thank you very much. And Miguel, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much, John, to you and to the whole technical committee for this great seminar. I will pass now the floor to Patrick Malesiac, Secretary General of PIARC, for some closing remarks, and then we'll be to the first delegate of Tunisia to close officially the seminar. Patrick, please.
Merci beaucoup, Miguel. Je vais m'exprimer en
Thank you very much, Miguel. I will be speaking French again.
I would like to thank all of the participants, all of the leaders who made such a very important difference in this seminar. Looking at Tunisia, the United States, wonderful to have such speakers from Tunisia, from Italy, from Spain. How an international seminar that deals with this type of topic that is so very important to us all. Today, we all bear in mind the casualties that are being caused by road accidents, the terrible results, strategic things that are matters that are going to continue to be top of mind for all of us. and that have been, such as the Stockholm Declaration, the safe system, for instance, and without getting into details, but we saw precise information and countermeasures that can be used, and the case studies that were shown that demonstrate that we can have topics that we can exchange on strategies, what we are doing, how can one country develop concrete measures, how can this be applied elsewhere. Thank you ever so much to the organizers and to Tunisia, that Tunisia is, of course, a very active member of PIARC, and for organizing the seminar, for having accepted to change your in-person conference or seminar to a virtual seminar. I think we were all able to benefit from this, and I would particularly like to thank the work of our Road Safety Technical Committee members from Tunisia. Over time, I think that we can simply say that that the work that was done was wonderful teamwork, and I was very pleased to be able to organize or to play a small role in the organization of all of this. Thank you very much, and hope to see you all very soon. Thank you, Patrick.
PIARC et Directeur Général des Routes. À vous la parole.
Merci, Monsieur Miguel. Vraiment, c'est un honneur pour la Tunisie de pouvoir organiser ce séminaire en partenariat avec notre ministère, bien sûr, l'association.
Thank you very much for organizing this seminar together with the PIARC as well. We really didn't find ourselves at a loss with this conference. It was so very interesting. It's as important for road safety as it is for all of us. It's true, when we take part in these distance seminars, each of us in our countries, at times we're very far, but here in this seminar we felt that we were very close. Many of the speakers, the conference participants, the interpreters, we were expecting different conditions, of course, and we hope that very soon, when the conditions make it possible, to be able to host you all here. And we will work together, ATR, the Ministry of Equipment, Housing and Infrastructure, together with PIARC, to schedule our activities with generally. I hope that our exchanges were fruitful, that I can say that the presentations that we saw will enable decision makers to make the right decisions. I would like to thank all of the team from PIARC and Technical Committee 3.1.1, as well as all of the speakers, the ATR, and the organizers of this seminar for their hard work. The speakers, I would like to thank particularly because you made great efforts to share your experiences, the research and innovations made in road and road safety matters. The organizers of this seminar at the ATR and PIARC, particularly, of course, Miguel, Madame Ksontini, and Mr. Ksontini, as well as all of the founding members of the ATR, the interpreters who joined us throughout the seminar with a great deal of professionalism in interpreting the 3 languages, and of course all of the participants, hundreds of participants from many different countries, and of course for your patience, for your reactivity with which you answered all the different questions posed of you. Thank you all so very much. I hope that we will have other events that we're going to develop together very soon. Thank you all so very much once again.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, everyone.
Au revoir et bonne soirée.
Bonne soirée, stay safe.
Bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Well done, everybody.
Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Well done, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye. Stay safe.
Bye bye.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ciao, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Au revoir.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. يعطيكم الصحة. Et à très bientôt, Inch'Allah.
Inch'Allah.